So there's been a nuclear attack. Don't ask me how or why, just know that the big one has hit, okay? So what do? There are 3 important steps that I want you to remember. Step 1, get inside fast. You, your friends, your family, get inside. And no, staying in the car is not an option. You need to get into a building and move away from the windows.
Right, everybody, welcome back to part 2 of our interview session with Kim Sinton from an undisclosed location. Coming to you live. Kim, how you doing today?
Doing great. Thanks, Mahesh.
All right. So we wanted to continue our conversation with the Tulsi Joe Rogan clip and continue our commentary that we started in the first part. And let's go ahead and get right into it. And again, our disclaimer, we are not professing to be experts in anything or telling you what you should think. This is purely conversational, and we're just trying to engage conversation so that we can work towards being a better country and try to do the best we can to erode this divisive culture that has developed in the last 5 years. Or actually, it probably started 6 years ago, but it's been around for a while, but it's been exacerbated around the time Trump won the election. But and there's a lot of reasons for that. We can get into it. But let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to start the clip, and we'll go from there.
When I was running for president at town halls that we held across the country, it didn't really matter where we were, whether it was a small town or a big city, middle America, East Coast, West Coast. One of the things that one of the media embedded reporters that would, kind of follow us around everywhere we went, made an observation that I thought was pretty awesome. This reporter said, gosh, I go to all these different campaign and candidate events. Yours is the only one where people walk out feeling hopeful and feeling inspired. And we had Democrats, Republicans, and independents and libertarians at every single one of those. And it was because we talked about different issues. We talked about, the threat of nuclear war. We talked about this new Cold War, the dangers of continuing down this path. We talked about things that education. We talked about how we actually talked about these things. Most days, I never brought up Trump. Because why? I'm running and I'm asking you, hey, let me have the opportunity to serve you, and here's what we will do. Whereas with these other candidates, these other Democrat candidates who were running, people left angry. People left angry. And that was their only goal, was like, hey, how many lines against Trump can we use that we know are going to piss people off and motivate them through anger and fear rather than through hope and inspiration for what we can do together as a country. That's the direction that we need to go. And there are a lot of things that are issues that are of concern, and treating people with respect and like they have intelligence, and actually tackling those issues, breaking through and being able to deliver that message to the American people, I think is the challenge. I think people want it, but the media does a really great job of kind of reducing things to their lowest kind of standard.
Do you think that the biggest challenge, or one of the, I should just rephrase that, one of the biggest challenges, I believe, is the influence of money? And when you look at Dave Smith was on the podcast recently, and we went over the defense budget, and I had no idea it was that much. It's such an insane amount of money. How can decisions be made that are not influenced by that money? When you're talking about what was it, $1.7 trillion? That is a preposterously huge amount of money per year. Yeah. That was the 2022 budget, apparently. What can be done to remove money from the equation of doing the right thing, doing the safe thing, doing the thing that's going to secure the future of America and put us in a good direction? It seems like money is so inexorably tied to all the political decisions that get made in this country, particularly when it has to do with foreign policy.
Yeah.
When you're talking about, and you have been a very outspoken critic of interventionist foreign policy and wars that are unnecessary and that put lives in danger and cost incredible amounts of money, but enrich the coffers of all these corporations.
And that undermine our own
Yes.
interests and security interests. Yeah.
Yes, and this is exactly what Eisenhower warned of when he was leaving office.
Exactly.
The military-industrial complex. I mean, that is such a nefarious term, and to most people, it's sort of abstract. Like, you hear that term, the military-industrial complex. Like, if you go to the average person on the street, even a well-educated person, like, define that. What does that mean? Like, how do they affect policy and change? And what's the defense budget? Like, how much money are we talking about? So, with things like funding the Ukraine war with Russia, please explain to people what that means and why we're sending so much money over to Ukraine.
So let's start with that. Let's start with the military-industrial complex.
Okay.
What is it? Who is it? It is these massive defense corporations who make all these different weapon systems, from the smallest to the most powerful nuclear weapons and missiles. When we are at war, they make a lot of money. When politicians, even if we're not at war but are threatening that we may go to war, they make a lot of money. And these decisions are not made within the context of, hey, what does our military actually need? What do we need to ensure that our military is ready to defend our country and our national security interests? It is very often what members of Congress are advocating for, even more than the military is asking for sometimes, because of those cozy relationships with the military-industrial complex, with these massive defense contractors and their lobbyists. So there's a direct correlation as the money is changing hands there. The problem is not with the Democratic Party, the Republican Party. On this issue, when you see so much divisiveness on tons of other issues facing our country, everything from infrastructure to education, all these other things, you see like, oh my gosh, Democrats and Republicans can't agree on anything. This issue of putting our country in a continual state of war is supported by leaders in both parties and the majority of people in both parties. And it's directly tied to the military-industrial complex's influence and tied to people who, want to act and look tough, but aren't asking the most important questions like, okay, if we do this, will this help the American people or hurt the American people? If we vote to, send these billions of dollars to Ukraine, is that strengthening our national security or undermining it? You'll hear a lot of rhetoric, especially recently, saying, hey, if we've got to send all this money to Ukraine, otherwise Russia's going to come and attack us here. Otherwise, our national security will be undermined. So they say all these things to foment fear in people's minds, but they're not rooted in reality. So what we're seeing play out now is essentially a proxy war. U.S. is engaging in a proxy war with Russia, using Ukraine as their military. So the U.S. and some European countries, predominantly the U.S., though, are providing billions of dollars in funding, weapon systems, and so forth, and essentially waging this war using the Ukrainian military and people as their chess pieces in this geopolitical chess game.
We went on for quite a bit
I
there.
could just
with
listen
her.
to that all day.
Yeah, I know. She pretty much just said everything we just talked about in the first part, which was because it lines up with everything we're talking about. So
She said it. It's not a Democrat or Republican
Correct.
issue. Both parties are they don't agree on anything except they agree on that.
right.
When I was debating on Facebook about Democrat versus Republican, and people were pointing out the flaws and all the people were pointing fingers, and I said, well, if you look at the big arms deal that was done with Saudi Arabia, which is one of the biggest arms deals in history, a $10 billion, well, I guess the stuff with Ukraine is starting to to overshadow that, but it was
Right.
$10 billion of weapons sold to Saudi Arabia, which they then used to
Yemen, all these,
wreak havoc on Yemen. And who put that together? Well, the Obama administration put the deal together, and then Trump signed it. So, they both parties were just completely guilty, and there was no excuse for it. I mean, what's the excuse for selling? I mean,
freedom.
Freedom. I mean, to Saudi Arabia, really? I mean, they're more conservative. So ironically, Saudi Arabia is as conservative or more conservative than Syria that we said, and Iraq. They're more conservative than Iraq that we felt we had to bomb to liberate them.
Somewhere in Africa, they found how many thousands of barrels of oil, and the memes started popping up saying like, we got to go give them some freedom. So
yeah, exactly. I mean, we can laugh, but yeah, it's really sad.
Yeah, it kind of speaks to what our foreign policy is as a country, and we need to become conscious and aware of that. That listen, the world is filled with resources, but there are other ways to accomplish the acquisition of these resources in a way that's more. Do I want to use the word equitable? In a way,
I like that word.
I know, because that word is also loaded lately politically.
That's the problem,
it's like,
you
use a word, it's like he said equitable.
But that's the thing.
But the distribution, there are ways to structure deals that
brings up another good point, Mahesh.
Yeah.
What you're saying of, that you get pigeonholed into one camp or the other, like you get pigeonholed into left or right so easily. And now, climate change is a good one. It's like, I'm an environmentalist, but now when I talk about climate change, I kind of cringe a bit, even though, I still think climate change could be an issue.
And I know why you cringe.
All the science, but it's been so politicized.
There you go.
And I can understand the right wing, even though I'm an environmentalist, I understand why the right wing people are concerned, because it's not just when they say climate change, they're not just trying to make everyone use less carbon and really be efficient. It's a whole agenda that comes with it. And they use that as the wedge to get in there and do all sorts of other stuff that rightfully the right wing people are concerned about. Right. So then you've taken, and the word woke was a perfectly good word. It really did mean that people were, aware of racial issues. Yeah. And now they attached so much other stuff to it that I would never want to be called woke, even though I would want to be considered, aware of racial issues, but I don't want someone to label me as woke.
Correct. No, I'm with you. I totally get it. That's exactly what started happening, and I started noticing the language started becoming varied in terms of meanings of what kind of who used it and what it meant to them, and that's actually what it's become now. It's like you can't speak freely anymore, because as soon as you speak, one group is going to throw you into a camp with the other, because their interpretation of the word is attached to what they think it means in their heads, not what it means in the dictionary anymore. Webster's dictionary is out the door. It's just now it's like, if you use that word, you're a leftist or a right winger, and it's like, what's going on here? When did this happen? That's what got me started in all this in the first place. Was I was like, this is messed up. We shouldn't be here right now. We're a free country. At least that's what we call ourselves. And
it's the political division is. I think they exacerbated on purpose. I say they.
Right.
Say who is exactly they, but back in the 90s, I never have a political conversation with anybody.
Yeah, me too. It was just fun. It was just fun. We just had fun.
And we all knew like the establishment were the bad guys. Right. We all knew like they're selling weapons and they're suppressing all the good technologies and everything else. And it was just sort of went without saying. And now it's kind of like more and more of what they were really doing came out. And so, I mean, some of the stuff that's come out that has now been admitted by the CIA, by the different government organizations, is so shocking that they had to polarize people so that they wouldn't just blame the government. They say, oh, well, it was the Democrats that did that, or it was the Republicans that did that.
That's an interesting. Okay.
Because, like, for example, I don't know if you've seen the movie Kill the Messenger. You've seen that movie?
Not yet, no.
Oh, definitely watch that. So that shows basically, the crack epidemic was organized by the CIA, and
Correct.
the CIA, at the end of the movie, they show the CIA officially admitted that they worked with Nicaraguan drug lords to sell crack cocaine to poor black neighborhoods.
Correct.
They admitted this officially, and it was when they admitted it officially. It happened at the time when Monica Lewinsky, whole Monica Lewinsky fiasco was going on, so it got buried.
Right.
And then, the movie, a certain percentage of people seen the movie now, but it's been enough years. And then, but because of things like that came out, people would say, oh, well, yeah, that was the Republicans, It's like, no, that was the CIA.
Right. Correct. Because there are factions. This is where it gets complicated, right? This is where I tell people, like, it gets really dicey when we start trying to simplify the issue of racism and all these things in America, because it's not that it was one group or the other. It was a mixture of agendas that were clashing in America all through the decades, right?
Yeah.
And there was a mixture of good people and bad people who had varying agendas, far and few in between. And even within the organizations of the FBI, the CIA, you had people who were good as well as you had people who were corrupt. I mean, that and in the police force, it was the same. That's why it gets very tricky when the conversation gets very broad brushed. It's kind of like, well, all police are bad. Defund the police, and then that becomes a thing. And then now everybody's like backpedaling. Is like, oh, did you see all the crime and all the burning of cities? We got to bring it. Now everybody's backpedaling. Is like, no, fund the police. I just saw one of the candidates in Iowa sent a pamphlet. I have the two pamphlets at home. I should have brought it with me. Where the first when Trump was in office, she had defund the police on the pamphlet, and then now the same candidate has fund the police. I back the blue on her pamphlet. And I'm like, oh, this is silly. This is just, there's no one with a backbone or a spine or just be a politician the right way and focus on the issues that matter for the people. And you don't have to jump on a bandwagon, which unfortunately is where politicians are at right now, which Tulsi points out in her interview, which is everyone's just concerned about their career, being a career politician, which is sad. Because
she has a lot of guts. I mean, think about this. We were just talking about the 90s, and we've known that this stuff has been going on since the 90s. Back in the 90s, we didn't even have to talk about it. We all agreed, hey, the bad guys are selling weapons, and they don't care about the people. They just want to make money selling their weapons.
Correct.
And,
well, we just used to call it the Illuminati. We had names for it: Cabal, Illuminati. We just call it, we gave it a shadowy kind of a name because it was a simple way to hold in our heads and say, yeah, we know we're dealing with a bad element of the world. Kim, we lost you for a second due to some technical difficulties out there in Ukraine. How are things on the front line?
It's brutal. Bullets whizzing over my head, man.
Oh man, well, how far are you from the border with Russia?
I really cannot say.
It's undisclosed. It is undisclosed.
Undisclosed.
That's right. We're just kidding, folks. We're having fun. We should have fun once in a while, right? All right. Let me go ahead and play some Tulsi, and we'll get started. Play some Tulsi. What am I?
Let's play some band. She's like a singer or a band.
The ultimate objective being regime change with Russia. And you can see years before, obviously, Russia's invasion in Ukraine, this anti-Russia sentiment has been building up by the permanent Washington establishment and laying the groundwork. And this was the opportunity that they saw. It's put us in the most dangerous position we, the American people, and the world has ever been in that a nuclear war could break out in a week, in 30 days. We are staring over the precipice of that nuclear brink now more than ever before. We're hearing language coming from Putin, from Medvedev, from different Russian nationalist leaders saying, no, Putin, you should go and use those nuclear weapons. Whether they're the tactical nukes or the strategic nukes, doesn't matter. There is no way to win this. That would spark a nuclear war. It would spark World War III. And the result of that is destruction of the world. It is destruction of the world as we know it. And, I hate to paint such a bleak picture, but people need to know that this is the reality that we're facing, that our leaders have pushed us and led us to this brink of nuclear war. They have their own bunkers and ways to protect themselves. There is no shelter for the American people. I think it was last time I was here, I talked to you about the nuclear scare that we had in Hawaii and how, this message went out to everybody saying, hey, missile incoming, seek shelter immediately. This is not a drill. What everybody found out immediately is there is no shelter. There is no shelter. There's no place to go. There's no place where you can take your loved ones and your kids to be protected, not only from the blast, but the fallout and the lack of food and water and everything else that comes after. New York City recently put out a PSA. I don't know if you saw it, but it is literally a video ad that they put out saying, hey, here's what you do in the event of a nuclear explosion. Why are they putting this out now? Because of where we are as a country. The problem is, as it shows in this video, their advice to the people of New York City is get inside, and stay tuned. That's it.
Stay tuned to what?
The radio, I guess.
I mean, what is even going to be available?
That's my point. Yeah, that is exactly my point. There will be no power. There will be no infrastructure. There will be no, you see what's happening in Florida right now with the recovery efforts after this hurricane just swept through and demolished it. You think about that, multiply that by 50,000 times. The devastation is what we would see, but we wouldn't have FEMA. We wouldn't have these first responders who are able to actually go out and help people. And the worst thing I said when I watched that PSA, get inside, stay tuned. At the end, I'm assuming as an actor they hired to do this, she looks in the camera and she's like, you got this, New York. Like, what in the world? These people are creating this false sense of security for the American people, saying oh yeah, take shelter, but there is no shelter.
We should watch that because it's so crazy.
It is insane.
Let's watch that because it's. All
right, here we go.
So there's been a nuclear attack. Don't ask me how or why, just know that the big one has hit, okay? So what do? There are 3 important steps that I want you to remember.
Big
Step
smile.
1, get inside fast. You, your friends, your family, get inside. And no, staying in the car is not an option. You need to get into a building and move away from the windows.
Look at her smiles.
I know.
Big smile.
Step 2, stay inside. Shut all doors and windows. Have a basement? Head there. If you don't have one, get as far into the middle of the building as possible. If you were outside after the blast, get clean immediately. Remove and bag all outer clothing to keep radioactive dust or ash away from your body.
So casual.
Step 3, stay tuned. Follow media for more information. Don't forget to sign up for Notify NYC for official alerts and updates. And don't go outside until officials say it's safe. All right? You've got this.
You got shit.
You got this.
Officials like who? Rashida Tlaib?
like who? Rashida Tlaib? That was funny. Oh, all right. I think I don't know.
And with that, Mahesh, this on an uplifting note.
On an uplifting note, protect yourselves. Get indoors. And stay safe, folks. That should protect us from nuclear war. But that's what Tulsi is pointing out.
To buy some, if they really think it's, I mean, maybe now's the time to buy like a solar cooker and you stock up on rice, and fresh water. I mean, it's getting to that point, but yeah.
Yeah. But we shouldn't give up. I think, and this is what I'm hoping to inspire, and I hope that with these conversations inspire more conversations with more people, and more people start talking, and then we can start going to our leadership in our local areas and saying, no, if you want our vote, you get this fixed. We're not going to go to war. We don't want war. I don't have a problem with Russians. Yeah, I love Russians. I don't have a problem with Ukrainians. I love Ukrainians. I don't have a problem with anybody in the world. Why are we fighting this proxy war, and then which is eventually going to lead to a nuclear war? For what?
No reason. There's no reason. It's not like it's the USSR and they have this, extreme communism that we have to be fearful of. And no, it's just another country that they basically run capitalism like we do.
Right.
Maybe they have a little less free speech, but that's like half the countries in the world.
Right. But you see, the more we remain a freer society in the West, the more that those countries will have to keep up to keep their citizens, right? So, like, in a way, this is what people don't understand. Is like the more we are that beacon of being a republic / democracy type civilization, people want to come here, right? That's why people come here to get a chance to start life. These other countries have to now start competing to, like, how do we keep our people now? How do we develop economies or ecosystems that people want to stay here and grow our nation, develop our nation? So there's that aspect too that people are not realizing. Why are we trying to become like them to compete with them? It should be the other way around.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, there's so much more I could talk about, Mahesh, but we better save it for another night.
Yes, of course. It was a pleasure. Yeah. Thank you for being on the show. I look forward to doing a lot more shows, and hopefully we'll get more guests on too. And and maybe we can also all present solutions to what's going on in the world, ideas that people can go to their local town halls with and present, or local politicians, and say, hey, this is what we want, and then go from there. But I'm hopeful. I think we're off to a great start having this discussion. Thank you to Tulsi for getting this on the national stage and getting people talking like we are, and putting us in a direction that's more positive. So
absolutely, yeah. Thank you, Tulsi,
and thank you, Kim.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thank you, Mahesh, for organizing this.
You're welcome, and have a good night, sir. I appreciate you very much, and everyone who's watching. We appreciate you too, and we look forward to seeing more of everyone on the next show. And thank you very much, and have a good night. And we are out. Unfortunately, we both have to be somewhere right now, so we can't continue longer, but we will be back.